Good evening, members. We're just approaching 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Cabinet meeting, 31st of August, 7 p.m. Fire alarm procedures. If the fire alarm is activated, vacate the offices via the stairs. Please do not use the lifts. Assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. Please switch off or turn your mobile phones to silent and do not make or receive calls whilst the meeting is in progress. Please note this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public. The meeting will also be recorded and will subsequently be broadcast on the internet. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? No. The following members have asked to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1. Item 3, Councillor Wing. Item 4, Councillors Alban, Garner, Austin, Bailey and Wing. Item 6, Councillor Garner. Are there any more members requesting to speak? There are no apologies for absence. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest to declare in the items of business on the agenda this evening? No. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Do I have a proposer for the minutes? Councillor Saunders. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bayford. Councillor Wing, you have asked to speak regarding item 3.
Thank you, Leader. You'll be glad to hear it's quite brief, actually. I find it quite strange that when a councillor raises serious concerns or speaks and raises a concern, however serious that concern is, that all that's recorded in the minutes is that councillor's name, so there's no actual record of what they've actually discussed or tried to raise. That's my first point. My second point is, I remember at that meeting that you kindly asked for me to send that report to you, my speech to you, so that the paid officer Gavin Waite at the time could give a response to all my concerns, some of which I think were fairly serious. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wing. I understand it's not constitutionally necessary to record the actual request for a response on the report, but I will tell you for your information that the report that was sent through, you kindly sent it to me because I'd agreed to send it on, and I sent it to Mr. Waite and Mr. Humber on the 11th of August 2021 at 14:10. So if that can be recorded in the minutes, if that suffices.
Thank you.
Item 4, Thanet lifts petition. To introduce, Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Leader. The Council received a petition containing 2,180 valid signatures requesting that the seaside lifts at Viking Bay and Ramsgate be reopened. This petition was presented at the full Council meeting on the 3rd of June 2021. A Cabinet report is being produced to cover all the aspects around both lifts to inform the decision regarding their future, and in the meantime this report provides an update and further information about the lifts. I think it's important to note that of this report, or the notes in this report, there are no financial implications for the Council, and we will, before the publishing of the final report, be hoping to meet with local community groups to discuss this matter further. Thank you.
Right, speakers under 20.1, Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Pugh, for that. Well, here we are again with this, and this saga will, as the report says, drag on. We've got more episodes than Coronation Street. I have some issues in relation to the report that I'd just like to speak about. One, the report refers to £25,000 have been spent repairing water damage components following the theft of the lead. I think it should be clear in the report that that £25,000 was the insurance claim, money that we got from there, and that money's been spent on that. So it just gives the view that 25,000, that the council was able to cough up £25,000 to spend initially on that, instead of it being an insurance claim. Now, obviously, we're fully aware of the financial restraints that the council has. None of us are stupid as far as that is concerned. And obviously, I've noted that a further £35,000 is required to be spent in order to get the lift fully repaired and working. I was hoping, like my colleagues, Councillor Huxley and Councillor Crittenden, for who I'm also speaking on behalf, that by now we would have had something, some money put in place for this to be carried out and done. It's specifically important for Ramsgate, and I'm sure certainly our Broadstairs councillors here, are part of Cabinet, know the importance of the lift for Broadstairs, and the amount of reaction that it produced when it wasn't working. I'm specifically talking about the Ramsgate lift. It's an important part of Ramsgate's heritage, especially in its location on the East Cliff, which is obviously near to the bandstand, it's near to the waterfall, it's near to the Pullamites, which we just got grant for to repair, and it's near to can't remember the bloody name. No. It's near to the terrace, the arched terrace. Pardon?
Wellington Crescent.
Wellington Crescent. Thank you very much. It's been a long day, and all of those, they all add up to our heritage that we have in Ramsgate. And it's very important for our residents, but it's also the lift in itself is also important for our visitors who come along, especially our disabled ones who may be staying above on the East Cliff and need to get down to the beach, and quite rightly so. I would just urge Cabinet that they would bring this report back here as soon as possible, and to find the money, this £35,000 to spend on the lift and to get it going. I would also ask Cabinet to give the residents of Ramsgate a view that this is going to happen. I won't use the word promise that they will pay, that you will pay this, because I can't do that. But to give the residents at least something that they can grab hold of, to think that the lift will be up, repaired and working as soon as possible. Because the last part of the report actually says that the lift will be closed for the foreseeable future. Well, what does that mean? It doesn't actually mean anything, does it? You know, if Cabinet could give a view as to how long this will take, and that they can find the money for this, and get this done for the residents and visitors to Ramsgate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Did you want to come back on that, or would you like to come back at the end, speakers? Okay. Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Leader. Well, one positive that has come out of the closure of the lifts at the start of this summer was that it's led to a greater awareness in the community about the difficulty some of our residents and visitors to the area have accessing our beaches, when these lifts are unavailable. And the strength of feeling about their closure has been demonstrated through Mr. Sticking's petition, which has quickly garnered significant support. And as of yesterday, when I checked, 4,225 people have signed calling for both lifts to be open and maintained. I agree with Councillor Alban about the report, because I think it's unfortunate that the report before Cabinet this evening is not able to give us, after all this time, the full picture of the issues that need to be addressed and the costs associated with addressing them, to enable both lifts to be made good and operational for the future. It reads to me, unfortunately, like a first step towards a decision to close them both permanently. Rather than this, I believe we need a plan that focuses on repairing and maintaining these lifts, and not just for the summer season, but for all year round. A large number in our community are calling for this, and they deserve to be taken seriously. Can the Cabinet please ask officers in the preparation of the more detailed report to outline a plan that will capture all tasks and associated costs, so that a year-round lift service can be seriously considered in the near future? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Leader. I'm very pleased to note that the Viking Bay lift has been able to be reopened. I'm very concerned about the Eastcliff lift, but as somebody who spent quite a bit of my professional life writing funding bids, I have to say this is a classic external grant funding project. It has the potential to draw funding down from the sorts of funds which support disabled access and inclusion, and also architectural heritage. It's a stunning example, as Councillor Alban has highlighted, of our architectural heritage. There are possibilities here for drawing down funding. I look across at the Director of Regeneration and I'm aware of her tiny team and her huge commitments. Can I highlight the skills and abilities that we have in our community in the matter of external funding? In the Eastcliff Community Group alone, there are several people who have drawn down substantial funding for Ramsgate, and there is a former extremely senior civil servant. Can I suggest to Cabinet that consultation with the community happens as soon as possible, and that this includes the possibility of working with stakeholders to put in substantial external funding bids in order that these resources are not lost? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. We'll finish with obviously Councillor Bailey, and then I think we'll sum it all up. There might be more than one Cabinet member that would like to contribute to the questions and the answers. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I think previous speakers have all put me a bit in the shade. They're so eloquent. But I'll carry on anyway. So first of all, speaking as a ward councillor, my other ward councillors are here as well, for Viking Bay, can I express my thanks for ensuring that the Viking Bay lift was open in time for the summer holidays. And it has been a real godsend to people and really welcomed, although I do recognise that Ramsgate have not been as fortunate. My couple of questions were, whilst I acknowledge the large sum of money that has already been spent in getting the Viking Bay lift operational again, the report states that there's still a lot of work to do. So could we please have a commitment that this will be budgeted for, and that the required work to make the lift fully safe and compliant will be done as soon as is practicable? My second question or point relates a bit to Councillor Garner's, although I'm not quite as optimistic as Councillor Garner. I know that there is a rather hopeful call for the lift to remain open 365 days a year, but I would hazard a guess that this would be deemed as both unprecedented and financially unviable by the Council. However, and using the principle that if you don't ask, you don't get, I wonder if consideration could be given to an out-of-season schedule where the lift is available for popular events such as the October Food Festival and during the Christmas and Easter holidays, so at least it's open for part of the out-of-season. Not only would this provide a vital service at those busy times, it would also keep the lift in running order and help to prevent it seizing up over winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Pugh, I'm going to come to you first, but I think...
Sorry,
also...
Leader, I was due to speak under this item as well. Sorry.
Pardon? Sorry, Councillor Wing.
Obviously, we're really pleased that Broadstairs lift is up and running, and in fact there are 2 lifts in Ramsgate. There is a dysfunctional lift on the West Cliff that we've already lost, and thanks to the Western Undercliff group and their funding, and I believe working in association with TDC, that lift was partially restored on the external side of it so that it didn't continue to deteriorate and be blighted. So it looks okay, though it's not being used. We'd love that one to be in use, but that might be asking too much. I think I need Cabinet. I think we need Cabinet to give the people of Ramsgate reassurances that every effort will be made to provide equality of provisions with regard to beach access via lifts, but also to have a working lift of significant historical importance, which is a tourist attraction. Very often lifts in other seaside resorts are tourist attractions. They attract people in and is part of our heritage, just in the same way that the lift in Broadstairs is important in terms of access and heritage. I echo what Councillor Hartley says in terms of working with residents. We know we have a significant number of people with the talent to draw down money. I actually work for Charlton Athletic, and I'm part of a group that's drawn down over £500,000 in the last 5 years to keep our own provision going for disaffected young people. So that skill and ability, it actually exists out in the community, and I would urge TDC, given our present funding crisis, to make every effort to encourage those people to step forward and try to access and start putting in money that I believe we are losing hand over fist. All those groups of people would need is one officer to be that link or that guide for that group of people to actually get that money going. We're desperately short of finances, and we need to explore every avenue, and that means using the talented people we have out in our community to make projects like this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wing, and apologies again that I was looking at my old list, not my new one. Over to you, Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Leader. I thank councillors for their questions and for their comments. I think it's incredibly important to note that, us as an administration, but also all of us as councillors of the council, is that public safety is our number one priority, and it should always be our number one priority. And I look forward to the finalising of the report and what the report says, because I think that that's something that we all need to bear in mind. These lifts, when they were first constructed, as I'm sure we all know, were built in a time when they weren't adhering to the standards that we would appreciate and we would expect now, particularly for people that need them the most. So that's another important consideration. But I take exception to Councillor Garner's comment, particularly about residents deserving to be listened to. I think all of us as councillors listen to residents on a frequent basis, and will continue to do so on issues such as this. But I don't necessarily think that this issue is as clear-cut as some people will believe it to be. And as I said, the public safety is our number one priority. But I'm sure other Cabinet members may have other things to add.
Councillor Bob Bayford.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. To echo really what everybody said, I think we would love to be able to provide 2 lifts, working 24/7, throughout the year. But, recent history has told us that in order to do that, it's likely that there's going to be major works need to be done on both lifts at huge expense. And, it's a bit ironic really, because if you look at the recent history of Broadstairs, Broadstairs lift sort of breaks down, everybody moans about it and says, when are you going to fix it? So you fix it and everybody's happy it's fixed, then it breaks down again, everybody's fed up it's broken down again. So you think, well, maybe it would have been better to have left it broken down, because then you've only been disappointed once rather than twice. Now, that is a bit facetious, but I think there is some sort of truth in that. I think it is, a good idea to look at external grant funding. And what I hope that the message that people take away from tonight is that it is our commitment to look at both of these lifts, see what the prognosis is, because it's no good just doing a quick fix on them. They've got to be brought up to a standard where they're capable of running for a number of years, and there's got to be a budget for maintaining them, because the other thing that's for sure that both of those structures are going to need maintenance. And if you read this report here, it may have been other things, but it was highlighted in here to me for the first time, looking at the actual sort of lift shafts, the structures, rather than up to now we've been looking at the lift and mechanism and whatever, and you start looking at that and the problem gets bigger. So I think that what we would hope to do is to be able to work with the community. I think Councillor Pugh has already said that he's looking to arrange community involvement in this, and together we can look at what the art of the possible is, look at trying to achieve nirvana. But if we can't, then we need to recognise why we can't, and and then kind of move on. But yeah, committed to doing it.
Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Leader. As a member of the Millennium Group in Broadstairs, which was fundamental in getting the lift built in 1999-2000, I have a very vested interest in that lift shaft. I have to say that I'm not so sure that a lift built in 2000 or opened in 2000 counts for heritage. Maybe if we still have the vernacular lift in Broadstairs, that may well do. What concerns me is, of course, Councillor Bayford has mentioned it, we have issues with regards to the actual fabric of the lift shaft. Ward councillors know that the actual promenade in Broadstairs is moving. Anyone that walks along the promenade will notice that the cracks in the tarmac adding surface are widening. We've had chalk falls all along onto the bathing station below. The lower promenade was closed for several months. We've had to move the beach huts that were there because of the chalk falls. So there is an issue with regards to the structure of that lift shaft. I've asked for the costings. I've had some approximate costings, and when we get down to sitting down and looking at the budget, we will certainly give due consideration to the cost involved. But it's not just the mechanics of the lift in Broadstairs that are disappointing me, that they haven't lasted longer than they have. I have now serious concerns with regards to the whole structure of the lift shaft. But you have my assurance, as someone that was spent months and months and months fundraising to get it there in the first place, that I will give my best endeavours in getting it, A, some money in the budget if possible, and B, looking at other funding measures in order to ensure that the lift stays for another 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. I would just like to add my piece and ask, I will be asking the officers to investigate what sort of funding is out there, what possibilities there might be of various bids. It's something that I've always commented on, and I think that will be supported by the Cabinet, is that I think we probably do miss opportunities, not just for lifts, but for a lot of areas in this council where we could go after money. It is a resource issue, but in some ways it sort of self-funds if you can get it off the ground, but it's an eternal circle to try and get there. So I will ask, as we've got the 151 officer with us tonight, I'll request perhaps someone in the team could actually just have a look to see what sort of funding could be available. I'm not asking your team to actually prepare a bid, but at least if there's something out or some bids out there that we could go after, and then maybe we can coordinate some of the expertise that we've got around. So as a sideline to everything, all the other good work that Councillor Pugh and Councillor Bayford are talking to the community about. So couple of pronged attacks. So is that okay? If I can come to you, Mr. Willis, thank you.
Yes, my finance team would always signpost any external funding they become aware of that's on their radar to the relevant officers, and this report before Cabinet makes reference to a further report, and I expect that further report from my colleagues to include any funding options, the cost of a proper refurbishment of one or both lifts, and options for funding that too. And my finance team would work with those officers that prepare that report.
Thank you, Mr. Willis. I'm asking Cabinet to note the report. Do members agree? Item 5. That's me, I think. Statement of Community Involvement Review. results of the public consultation and adoption. The Statement of Community Involvement sets out how the Council will consult on planning policy issues, planning applications and neighbourhood plans. The SCI was originally adopted by Council in 2007. A review and updated SCI was adopted by Council in 2012. It is considered appropriate that the SCI should be reviewed now in line with the forthcoming local plan review and to reflect changes in methods of communication and engagement. There is also a requirement under the Town and Country Planning Regulations that SCIs are reviewed every 5 years. The Council carried out a public consultation on the SCI review from the 25th of February to the 9th of April 2021. This report sets out the main issues raised in response to that consultation and any resulting changes to be made to the SCI. Subject to agreement by Cabinet, the reviewed SCI will be reported to full Council for adoption. The Council has considered the issues raised in relation to the SCI and some changes are recommended in Annex 1. Members will recall that concerns were raised regarding the proposed to change an administrative fee for processing lengthy and complex representations to the local plan. It was not the intention that this should affect the ability of local people to make representation, and following the consultation it is recommended that the proposal is not included in the SCI. The report was considered by OSP on the 26th of August and they agreed the recommendation without further amendment to the SCI. I move the recommendation in this report. Do I have a second? Councillor Bayford. Do members agree? Item 6, urgent decision amendment to the capital programme. To introduce, Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Leader. This report is requesting the approval of adding an additional scheme into the capital programme from the Towns Fund. Subject to final approvals from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, the capital funding within our programme will be no more than the total £22.2 million. This being the maximum award for the delivery of the projects already agreed for the Margate Town deal. The Council is the accountable body, and as 90% of the funding is capital, it needs to sit within our capital programme in order to be spent on capital projects. All the investment and costs associated with the Margate Town deal are fully funded from external grants and contributions, and all expenditure relating to the interventions will be managed within the total package of funding provided, to ensure there is no risk of financial exposure to the Council. I recommend approval that an allocation is made in the capital programme in order that the Council may receive the capital funding from central government.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. Councillor Bob Bayford is second. Do members agree? Agree. That concludes tonight's business. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Garner, sorry, you asked to speak on 20.1. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I only just had a couple of brief comments I wanted to make about the importance of openness and transparency in how the town deal is managed. Not just because that's one of the Nolan principles, but also because it's the best way of making sure that the community that the town deal is being delivered to benefit understand why decisions are being made about how the money is spent. While the report acknowledges the importance of transparency requirements being met, along with those other Nolan principles, I'll be grateful if Councillor Pugh could just answer a couple of questions along those lines. Firstly, how are we going to make sure that all decisions made by the board are published? And how are we going to monitor how funds are spent once they are allocated to a project? While this is of course important for all elements of the town deal, I think it's particularly important where money is allocated to projects which are outside our control, like the £4 million allocated to projects at Dreamland. I'll be particularly interested in knowing how we're going to be monitoring the spend on these projects to make sure the money is spent as intended by any new potential owners of Dreamland. Thank you.
Councillor Garner, if I can just come in there, this is just a constitutional requirement to move the money from one fund to the other to enable the spending of the revenue as soon as possible as the work starts. It's purely a formality through. This hasn't got anything to do with the actual programme of work. So this is just to put the mechanism in place. If I can just pass to Louise just to confirm what I'm saying there. This is not trying to avoid your question, but your question's not actually applicable to this particular amendment to the capital programme, but I'll pass to Louise, yeah?
Yeah, the funding is all capital, so it has to sit within our capital programme, and obviously that normally comes to a full council meeting. But as the report says, we have some funding up front to help deliver the setup of the projects, and therefore that all needs to go within the capital programme, otherwise we can't spend that money. There's a programme of monitoring and evaluation that we will have to report on a monthly basis back to central government about how we're allocating and spending the money, and we won't get any further funding for projects until we've fully spent the money as it comes through and accounted for that spending.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm not going to try and outmatch what Louise says. Louise is the expert here. But what I would say, Councillor Garner, is if you have any questions, please do send them to me. Any more questions, and I'd be more than happy to look into them and come back to you.
Thank you very much. I will do. Thank you.
So, thank you, members. Thank you, Cabinet and officers. And this concludes the business for tonight's meeting. I declare the meeting closed at, probably not at what that clock says, but 19:31. Thank you, Charles. Have a good evening.